Uruguay versus Argentina 1930. The very first World Cup already had violence. Excellent start to what would become the world's most beloved sporting event. Uruguay versus Argentina 1930 semi-final in Montevideo. The two biggest rivals in South American football, both convinced they'd win. Argentina led 2-1 at halftime. Uruguay fought back to win 6-1. As the match ended, Argentine fans rioted. Bottles were thrown, fights broke out, police intervened with batons. The Uruguayan government deployed the navy, the actual navy, to escort Argentine fans safely back across the River Plate. Nothing says it's just a game like requiring naval intervention. This set the tone. The World Cup's very first tournament proved that football and violence would be inseparable forever. And somehow, that wasn't even the worst one. Italy versus Brazil 1938. Italy versus Brazil 1938 semi-final in Marseille. Brazil were convinced they were the better team. Italy were the defending champions, playing brutal, physical football under Mussolini's fascist regime. What could possibly go wrong? The match was violent from the start. Italian defender Gino Colausi was sent off. So was Brazilian forward Domingos de Goya. Italy won 2-1. Then it got worse. Brazilian fans rioted in the streets of Marseille. They attacked Italian supporters, smashed shop windows, clashed with French police. The violence lasted for hours. Brazil blamed the referee, Italy blamed Brazilian indiscipline. The French just wanted everyone to leave. The riot became an international incident because apparently the lead up to World War II wasn't tense enough already. Brazil versus Hungary 1954. Brazil versus Hungary 1954 quarter-final in Bern. Two of the best teams in the world, both playing attacking football. It started well. Hungary won 4-2, but the match descended into absolute chaos. Players fought on the pitch, punches were thrown, both teams had players sent off. The referee lost control completely, which is impressive considering control is literally his only job. After the final whistle, the violence continued in the tunnel. Brazilian and Hungarian players attacked each other with bottles. Boots were used as weapons. Blood was spilled, a proper brawl. The match became known as the Battle of Bern. FIFA fined both teams, but the damage was done. Nothing says beautiful game like weaponized footwear. Chile versus Italy 1962. Chile versus Italy, 1962 group stage in Santiago. The build-up was toxic. Italian journalists had written insulting articles about Chile, calling Santiago a dump, and Chilean women unattractive. Brilliant pre-match diplomacy. Chilean fans were furious. They arrived at the stadium ready for war. The match was brutal. Italy's Giorgio Farini was sent off after 8 minutes for arguing. Then Italy's Mario David kicked a Chilean player in the head, just a full-on kung fu kick to the skull, and was sent off too. Chile won 2-0. After the match, Italian players were attacked by fans. Bottles rained down. The team bus was surrounded and damaged. Police struggled to control the mob. The match was later nicknamed the Battle of Santiago. The BBC commentator opened with, "Good evening. The game you are about to see is the most stupid, appalling, disgusting and disgraceful exhibition of football possibly in the history of the game." He wasn't wrong. El Salvador versus Honduras 1969. Not a World Cup match itself, but World Cup qualification. But one match didn't just cause riots, it started a war. El Salvador versus Honduras, June 1969. 3 qualification matches, escalating violence. After the first match in Honduras, Salvadoran fans were attacked. After the second match in El Salvador, Honduran fans were beaten. On July 14, 1969, El Salvador invaded Honduras. The football war lasted 100 hours. Thousands died. FIFA was horrified but completely useless. The World Cup qualification process had triggered a war. Netherlands versus West Germany, 1974. Netherlands versus West Germany, 1974 final in Munich. The rivalry was intense. Historical animosity from World War II still simmered. Probably should have seen this coming. The match was tense from the start. Fouls flew in. Players argued constantly. West Germany won 2-1, but the real chaos came after. Dutch fans rioted in Amsterdam. German cars were attacked. Businesses with German connections were vandalized. The violence lasted through the night. Many believe the referee favoured Germany. The penalty given to Germany in the second minute infuriated Dutch fans. The riot was football-related but carried deeper historical resentment. Turns out decades of unresolved trauma doesn't just disappear because you're watching a football match. And this still happens today. Argentina versus Netherlands 1978. Argentina versus Netherlands 1978 final in Buenos Aires. A military dictatorship hosting the World Cup. The stadium packed with soldiers and secret police. Totally normal football atmosphere. Argentina won 3-1 in extra time. Dutch fans in the stadium were intimidated throughout. Some reported being threatened by armed men. The atmosphere was oppressive. After the match, celebrations in Buenos Aires turned violent. Looting occurred. People were attacked. The military used the World Cup victory to strengthen their grip on power. The match itself wasn't violent, but the context was dark. The World Cup was being used as propaganda by a regime that was disappearing thousands of people, but at least they got a nice trophy out of it. And if you think that was bad, the next one reopened wounds from an actual war. England versus Argentina, 1986. England versus Argentina, 1986 quarter-final in Mexico City. The Falklands War had ended just 4 years earlier. Tensions slightly elevated. Maradona scored his Hand of God goal. English players were furious. The referee allowed it. Argentina won 2-1. In Buenos Aires, massive celebrations turned into riots. In England, Argentine businesses and embassies were attacked. The match reopened wounds from the war. Maradona later admitted the goal was revenge for the Falklands. The match was football, but it was also geopolitics. The violence that followed proved it. Nothing heals international war wounds quite like a cheeky handball. Yugoslavia versus Netherlands, 1990. Yugoslavia versus Netherlands 1990 knockout stage in Milan. Yugoslavia was already breaking apart. Ethnic tensions were exploding. The team was divided along national lines. Probably not the best time for a high-stakes football match. The match ended 0-0. Yugoslavia lost on penalties. But the real story was off the pitch. Croatian and Serbian fans clashed in the stands. Police intervened with tear gas. Within a year, Yugoslavia would descend into civil war. The World Cup match was one of the last times Serbs, Croats and others competed together. The violence in the stands foreshadowed the horror to come. Football bringing people together since 1930, while mostly tearing them apart, actually. Turkey versus Switzerland 2005. World Cup qualification, November 2005 in Istanbul. Switzerland needed a draw to qualify. Turkey needed a win. Turkey won 4-2 and qualified. But after the match, Swiss players celebrated anyway because they just qualified for their first World Cup in years. That wasn't even the craziest part. Turkish fans stormed the pitch. Police struggled to restore order. Several Swiss players were injured. Swiss players celebrating their World Cup qualification on Turkish soil, moments after eliminating the hosts. Genuinely couldn't have planned a better riot if you'd tried. Egypt versus Algeria 2009. World Cup qualification, November 2009. Egypt versus Algeria. 3 matches, escalating violence throughout. After the first match in Cairo, the Algerian team bus was attacked with rocks. Players were injured. After the second match in Algiers, Egyptian fans were beaten. And then it got worse. The third match, played on neutral ground in Sudan, ended with Algeria qualifying. Egyptian fans rioted. Algerian fans were attacked. The violence spread to both countries. The World Cup had nearly caused a diplomatic crisis between two nations. Brazil versus Germany 2014. Brazil versus Germany 2014 World Cup semi-final in Belo Horizonte. Brazil hosting the World Cup for the first time since 1950. The entire nation expected glory. Germany scored, and then scored again, And again, 5-0 after 30 minutes. The game was over before half-time. Final score, 7-1. The most humiliating defeat in Brazilian football history, broadcast to the world. After the match, protests and riots erupted across Brazil. Not just about the scoreline, about the billions spent on the World Cup while hospitals and schools crumbled. Cars were overturned, buildings were vandalized. The World Cup was supposed to unite Brazil. Instead, it exposed how broken everything was. Nothing says national pride like a 7-1 thrashing on home soil. France vs Croatia 2018. France vs Croatia 2018 World Cup final in Moscow. France won 4-2 and brought the trophy home. Then Paris exploded. On the Champs-Élysées, celebrations turned into riots. Shops were looted, cars were set on fire, over 100 people were arrested. Police used tear gas and water cannons. France had just won the World Cup. And the response? Burn down Paris. The riots showed that even winning causes chaos. Football doesn't need controversy or bad refereeing to spark violence. Sometimes victory is enough. Morocco 2022. Morocco's 2022 World Cup run was historic. First African team to reach a World Cup semi-final. They beat Belgium, Spain and Portugal. But in Europe, Moroccan diaspora celebrations turned violent. After Morocco beat Belgium, riots erupted in Brussels. Cars were set on fire. Shop windows were smashed. Police used water cannons and tear gas. Similar riots broke out in Amsterdam, Paris and other cities after Morocco's wins. The violence spread across multiple countries. The World Cup was in Qatar, the riots were in Europe. From the very first World Cup in 1930 to Morocco's run in 2022, football has sparked riots, violence and even war, truly the beautiful game. Some riots were about bad refereeing. Some were about historical tensions between nations. Some were just hooliganism for the sake of hooliganism. But all of them proved that football is never just a game. When national pride is at stake, when historical grievances simmer beneath the surface, when fans feel robbed or disrespected, violence follows. Add alcohol, remove consequences, and watch what happens. The World Cup is supposed to bring nations together in peaceful competition. Sometimes it does. Other times it triggers actual wars, street battles, and diplomatic crises. And judging by 2022, nothing has changed. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe for more deep dives into football's darkest moments and biggest controversies. And tell me in the comments, what's the most chaotic football match you've ever witnessed?